Welcome to Me Reimagined, a space where we step into the impossible version of ourselves, a version we only dream of, so we can create lives we love and the impact we are meant to make. Welcome to the Habits episode. Thank you for being here and for allowing me to be a part of your extraordinary journey, a journey toward a life of self-discovery and purpose and fulfillment. Every time we come together in self-reflection, we align our energy towards growth, transformation, and love, both for ourselves and the world that we touch. Today's episode is designed to help you implement the two-part series we did in December. In those two episodes, we explored how to reorient your life toward what truly fulfills you. We looked at designing your own boxes to check, ones that align with the feelings you want to cultivate, rather than the things that society tells you accumulate happiness. With these episodes, you began a journey of turning inward, of shedding what doesn't serve, and of creating from a place of deep purpose. And today, we are going to add structure to support what you are creating. Today, we're going to get very intentional about the habits that shape a life that feels as good as it looks. As you know, breath work is my thing. So as we begin, I invite you to connect to your breath. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for a moment and exhale fully. With that breath, you clear the space for reflection, learning, and transformation. Ground yourself in the knowing that you are exactly where you need to be and that this moment holds infinite potential. Let's get started. In this first segment, you are going to get your what right. Okay, be honest. How many times have you resolved in the new year to make over yourself, your life, in the hopes that you're going to have a fresh start? Yet, by the second Friday of the month, so many people have already abandoned their resolutions. A whopping 23% have already dropped out of the race, that researchers actually dubbed that Friday Quitter's Day. Most of the rest of us quit before the end, and only 6% of people actually see their goals through. So only 6 of you out of 100 actually stays the course and achieves your resolution. That means 94 of you want to reimagine your lives, but can't seem to get traction. That is a staggering amount. And yet, I was one of those 94 for decades. When I think about that, the first question that comes up for me is why? Do we lack willpower, discipline, or motivation? Looking at myself, I can see examples of where I have huge amounts of those things. I suspect you can also find examples of motivation and discipline in your own life. So if that's not it, what's up? Why are you failing to do what you say you'll do when it comes to making over yourself, your life? It's also not because of lack of desire. You really want to reimagine yourself. You are sincerely yearning for change. Today, we're going to look at the intersection of where desire and motivation and willpower fail. Hint, it's when they combine to propel you out of the plane without a parachute or a guide or training. Without that support system, it is no wonder you hit the ground with a thud. To start, let's consider the orientation of your goals themselves. In the episode on the 24th, we asked if you were checking your boxes that you intentionally designed to create an extraordinary life, or if you were checking the boxes society tells you that you need to check to be happy. If you haven't done the exercise, take a minute and reflect. Are your goals driven by a pull from within or by an external need to prove yourself? Let me tell you about my friend who I'll call Jess. She's 38, and from the outside, her life looks like something out of a career magazine. Jess has a really impressive job as a marketing director, and she's got a lot of high-profile clients, and she travels for speaking engagements, and she gets to host these flashy client appreciation events. She's got a gorgeous apartment in the heart of the city, and her Instagram is ridiculous. It is full of pictures of her sipping cocktails on white sandy beaches and riding horses in bikinis with her hair in the wind. But here's the thing about Jess. She's not happy, not in the way that you would think someone with her life would be. She told me once over a glass of wine that no matter what she achieves, it feels like it's never enough. It's like she's on this endless treadmill. What came up for me is that on a treadmill, there's no finish line. In my opinion, Jess's goals, well, they're not really hers. They're what she thinks she's supposed to have, what she thinks will make her colleagues respect her or make people scrolling on Instagram stop and like her life, or finally make her parents proud. She doesn't set her sights on things because they light her up. She's not focused on what makes her feel meaningful. Instead, she sets goals, she sets these milestones that she thinks will prove she's made it. One time, Jess admitted, I just don't feel like I've done enough, even though I'm exhausted all the time. I look at my life and think, shouldn't this feel better by now? And another time, she said that she felt like a fraud, like people might actually realize that she doesn't know what she's doing. And hearing her say these things was gutting because I know how hard she works, how much she gives, and how talented she is. But those comments, well, they tell me that she can't see it. The thing is, deep down, Jess doesn't just feel like she hasn't done enough. She feels like she's not enough. She'd never admit it outright, but I can see it in the way that she keeps adding more to her plate. Always striving. She's always reaching for something. It's like she believes that if she just achieves that next big thing, the promotion, a bigger apartment, maybe a perfect relationship, that she'll finally feel like she's worth something. But instead, she just ends up feeling exhausted. And I think she's losing herself in the process. What breaks my heart is that Jess is incredible, just as she is. She's funny and she's thoughtful and she works so hard to support the people around her. But she doesn't seem to see it because she's so caught up in chasing the idea of perfection, this need to prove to everyone else and to herself that she's worthy. It makes me wonder how different her life would feel if she stopped chasing those external markers of success and started listening to what she actually wants. If she could let go of proving herself and instead lean into living a life that feels meaningful to her. Jess's mindset is really oriented around what I call push energy. Her goals come from a sense of pressure, internal pressure, because she's seeking to alleviate that discontent that she feels. Some part of her is very aware that how she's designed her life isn't working. But since she's checked all those boxes, she doesn't really know what to do about it. But her goals also, I think, come from a sense of external pressure. She feels like she has to do these things to measure up. Resolutions that are set with intrinsic motivation, the kind that stems from pull energy, well, they're entirely different. When you align your goals with what genuinely lights you up, you move toward them effortlessly because they resonate deeply. To make sure that your goals come from that pull energy, you must be clear on what feeling you want from life and whether the resolutions that you are setting add up to that. Because if the resolutions aren't bringing you the feeling you're looking for, you either need to change how you connect with that resolution, which is a strategy, or you need to change the resolution, the strategy in and of itself. So for Jess, if she were to do this, it could mean pausing to ask herself some tough but really necessary questions. Like, what actually excites me? What am I curious about? What makes me feel alive? To move toward the extraordinary life she actually wants, not one that looks extraordinary on Instagram but feels terrible, Jess could change her strategies in a couple of areas. First, she could shift how she approaches her work. So instead of saying yes to every project to prove that she's indispensable and feeling exhausted all the time, she could choose to focus on pieces that she's genuinely passionate about. ones that align with her values and make her feel creative and energized. Maybe that's leading a campaign for a cause she believes in or mentoring younger team members. She mentioned before that she wishes she actually had time to do that. Knowing Jess, I think she's not actually ready to face the answers her heart gives her to those questions because it would demand major change in her life. What excites her isn't more of the same. In my view, it isn't aligning projects at work. It's changing the strategy entirely and doing something completely different. Jess talks a lot about starting a business renovating houses and furniture, but she doesn't think it would be successful enough, as in, it wouldn't pay the bills to keep up the luxury lifestyle that demonstrates her worth. She's also hesitant because building up followers on Instagram for something she's not known for, has never done before, it feels scary. But if she let go of the external pressure and gave herself permission to do it because it's fun, because it lights her up, I think Jess would discover not only that she would create some kick-ass furniture, but also that it would highlight a natural talent she has for revealing the inherent beauty in spaces. Another major change that could help her shift her life from fine toward extraordinary relates to how she spends her free time. If she planned experiences that genuinely restored her, instead of organizing trips that are Instagram worthy but leave her feeling stressed and broke, then I think she'd feel like a different person. I suggested a solo retreat in nature, but the thought of being alone with herself scares her. But the key for Jess, or for anyone really, is to tune out the noise of what she thinks she should be doing and tune into the pull of what feels good and meaningful. When she does that, her goals won't feel like a chore or a competition anymore. They'll feel like a natural extension of who she is, which means she will move from being one of the 94 to one of the 6 people who achieve the goal or the resolution that they set. What goals in your life come from push energy? What would it look like to realign them with a pull energy that feeds your soul? But even with intrinsic goals, success often depends on how we structure our lives to support them. A line from author James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, sums it up perfectly. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So I want to tell you about one of my clients to illustrate how this structure, rather than desire or motivation or willpower, is your make it or break it. So Kate is in her early 40s. She's a single mom with 2 kids, and she was looking for a coach because she felt stuck. Kate had a big, beautiful goal. She wanted to write a book, fiction, but based on her own life. And her story is incredible. It is full of resilience, grit, and the lessons that she's learned. I could hear the uplift in her voice when she spoke about it. I could feel what it meant to her to share this with others, especially women who might see themselves in her journey. But Kate was frustrated because she wasn't making any progress. She had all the motivation in the world, but every time we talked, she'd say, "Ma, I meant to, I just couldn't find the time." And she always had some excuse about how life got in the way. She said that by the time she sat down, she'd be too tired to even think. And then she'd feel guilty for not writing and beat herself up about it and start telling herself she wasn't disciplined enough. The thought that ran through her head most often during this time was, if it really mattered to me, I'd just make it happen. But what Kate didn't realize at first was that it wasn't her desire that was missing. It was her system. Her days were packed from the moment that she woke up. She didn't have a 9 to 5. She had an all hours on-call job that didn't account for any kind of life outside of it. She had her kids' schedules, and she managed a household all by herself. So when she finally had a moment to herself at night, of course she felt completely drained. And she thought the problem then was her lack of willpower. But her life wasn't set up in a way that supported her goal. So we worked together to create a system that would make writing her book feel not only possible, but natural. Kate realized that mornings before the chaos of the day began were her best time. So she started waking up an hour earlier And she created a writing nook that made her feel cocooned in creativity, where she could write uninterrupted. She also blocked time in her calendar on Sundays to plan her week, and she scheduled in her writing time each morning as with anything else in her day. And instead of focusing on writing an entire book, we broke it into smaller pieces. She developed just one character or wrote a single scene or a story at a time. Kate started to feel a shift almost immediately. She wasn't trying to force herself to write anymore. With her new systems in place, she said it felt like the space and energy she needed were finally there. And as the words started to flow, she stopped questioning her discipline or doubting her abilities. She started to believe, really believe, that she could do this. And finding flow early in the morning and doing something that she loved fed her energy in the day. It also kept her connected to her goal. Because she'd written so recently, she'd find that in transit to and from work, she'd get lost in what she was creating. So the flow never actually stopped. Seeing how quickly Kate's progress shifted after creating structure made me really aware of how often we judge ourselves harshly when we don't achieve our goals. We blame our motivation or commitment when the real issue is your systems. They're what's not working. They're not designed to support you. Most of your systems are likely designed for short-term pleasure that helps you avoid discomfort. In Jess's case, that was what she didn't want to know about how her paper perfect life wasn't working. It does that by giving you a dopamine boost, a reward, which reinforces automated behaviors that eventually lead to long-term dissatisfaction. So I'll ask you what I asked Kate. What systems could you create to support the goals that truly matter to you? How can you design your environment and routines to make those actions feel natural? You'll know you've achieved it when you feel a pull and a sense of flow that replenishes rather than depletes your energy. So, do you feel convinced now that it's your systems? Even if you feel like you need more evidence that it's not your fault, that you aren't lazy or undisciplined, try a test. Pairing evidence with experience is the best way to induce change. So, to build a system that works, try this simple framework. I pulled together 5 steps inspired by James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and the research out of MIT that was popularized by Charles Duhigg in his book, The Power of Habit. The first is anchor your habit to something familiar. James Clear would call it make it obvious. New habits, well, they stick best when it's tied to something you already do. This is called habit stacking. For example, if you want to start meditating, pair it with a routine like brushing your teeth in the morning. After I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for 5 minutes. If the cue is familiar, it makes it easier to remember and then act on the new habit. So the second step or piece is to make it effortless. Make it easy. Clear tells us to standardize before you optimize. You start small, so small that it feels almost too easy. So if your goal is to journal, commit to writing 1 sentence. If you want to exercise, start with a single push-up. But these small actions build momentum. They signal to your brain, this is who I am now. So the third piece is to design your environment for success. Clear talks about this when he says, environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Your environment is a huge part of your system. So to make a habit easier, reduce friction. If you want to read more, place a book on your pillow. If you want to drink more water, keep a bottle within arm's reach. I had a friend who actually slept in her sports bra, which did make her show up for our morning runs. But whatever your goal, make your environment work for you, not against you. Now, the fourth piece is to tie it to your who, your identity and your values. And this is probably one of the most important steps. Ask yourself, who do I want to become? The ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your who, your identity. For example, instead of saying, I want to exercise, say, I'm someone who takes care of my body. This shift transforms your habit from a chore, from an activity, into an act of personal self-expression. And then do the thing with the mindset you would have after you've already done the hard thing. You begin acting from the mindset of the person that you want to be, acting in the now as if you already are this person, making the same choices that the future you makes. That's a little confusing, so let me show you what I mean. If you want to exercise and you are making choices with your current mindset, you are likely to join the 94 of us who don't make it to the end of the year. You will not be doing a minimum of 365 push-ups, so one per day. So the future you won't be a person who is fit, who can do hard things. However, if you adopt the mindset that you have once you've already done the hard thing, then you will do a minimum of 365 push-ups, which is likely to exponentially increase as you go because it becomes familiar. It becomes easier because you're stronger. And because in your mind, you're a person who takes care of their body, a person who is fit. So to summarize, make it part of who you are and do it with the mindset that the future you has. The fifth step is to celebrate every win, and this is the fun part. Each time you complete your habit, celebrate it. When you save money, play a round of Candy Crush. Find a way to reward your win. Find a way to acknowledge it as well. Say, I did it, and do a power pose in the mirror to your favorite song, or write a quick note of gratitude. These small celebrations create positive reinforcement, making your brain associate the habit with joy and satisfaction. Now, in a previous podcast, episode 16 to be specific, and we'll link that in the show notes, we talked about how gratitude over time induces self-belief or faith in self. Because if you are practicing gratitude and looking for good things, you begin to truly know and trust that good things come your way, such that you have expectations that good things will happen by you, to you, and for you. That's the very definition of faith. So use gratitude to create self-belief that you can do this. So to illustrate the power of putting systems in place, I want to tell you a story about Lena, a former client of mine who transformed her life from fine to extraordinary. When we worked together, Lena was in her late 30s. She had a stable job and a comfortable life. But she realized that comfort wasn't fulfilling her. She often thought, is this all there is? And that really resonated with me because I also had that same thought at one point in my journey. Deep down, Lena had always dreamed of starting a nonprofit. She wanted to empower underserved communities through education. But that dream felt overwhelming, and she told herself, I don't have the time, money, or experience to make this happen. And the fear of failure kept her stuck in a life that was good, but not great. That comfort made it easy to tolerate the situation. It didn't provide her an impetus to change. And actually that, more than her fear, more than her inexperience, was one of the biggest things that prevented her from taking action to change. And that comfort was layered with Lena's fear. What if she risked everything and failed? And this was underscored by an even deeper layer of self-doubt. What if I'm not enough to make this happen? And these fears, they intertwined with the comfort to keep her solidly in a fine life for more than 8 years. While we worked on limiting beliefs and connecting to her desire, one of our biggest focuses was her system. Rather than making it a big leap, we broke her dream into small, actionable steps. Lena anchored her first habit to something she was already doing, journaling. She started with a simple prompt every morning. What's one thing I can do today to move closer to my vision? Next, we focused on building momentum. Instead of diving straight into nonprofit creation, Lena started volunteering at a local organization. She did this very intentionally so that she would be able to connect with mentors, gain experience, and really experience her dream in action so that it became big and real, and she didn't feel overwhelmed. She also redesigned her environment. Lena scheduled time every morning to read her vision, connect to it, and pick one action to take, which she then scheduled in her calendar. She also created a vision board of her extraordinary life. a visual cue that reminded her of her deeper why when she felt distracted or discouraged. And lastly, we had Lena adopt a powerful identity. Her theme, her phrase that she used was, "I am a change maker." And this simple phrase redefined how she saw herself. Every action then, no matter how small, became a reflection of the person she was becoming. But even with this great structure, halfway through her journey, Lena hit a significant barrier. She felt overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of her dream, and she started doubting herself again. Maybe this is too big. Maybe I'm not ready. We talked through this over a couple months, and we didn't focus on radical change. We focused on radical consistency, which is actually the key to success. Lena didn't need to take massive leaps, and that reduced her overwhelm. She simply focused on her next small, achievable step. And during this period, she also built a support system. She formed a mastermind group of like-minded entrepreneurs. And this group provided encouragement, fresh perspectives when she felt stuck, and accountability. After 2 years of deliberate effort, Lena launched that nonprofit, and she brought her dream of providing mentorship and scholarships to underprivileged youth to life. But our transformation, it wasn't just external, it was deeply internal. Lena told me once that it wasn't actually about the nonprofit. She said, it's about me becoming the kind of person who works on what matters. Her fine life, her comfortable life, it had transformed. She was waking up every day excited, not because everything was perfect, but because she was living a life that felt aligned with who she was. Now it's your turn. What would it look like to take your life from fine to extraordinary? What type of person do you need to become to live an extraordinary life? What feelings, thoughts, and habits drive that? What systems do you need to set up to bridge the gap from fine to extraordinary? Atomic Habits shows us that small habits don't add up, they compound. So start small, stay consistent, and watch your life transform in ways that you never imagined. Start today. What intentional system will you create to turn your yearning for more into a reality, an extraordinary reality that makes you want to wake up every morning? If you want help designing an intentional system, stepping into the mindset of your future self, the version of you who thrives effortlessly, use the calendar link in the show notes to book a call with me today. Together, we'll align your goals with your deepest values and create systems that set you up for success. Stop waiting to claim your extraordinary life. Don't wake up 10 years from now wondering why you didn't act on it earlier. It is possible to totally transform your life. Let's do it together. As we close this episode, I feel deeply grateful for music. Music has this transcendent ability to take me beyond myself, outside of my experience. It connects me with what truly matters, with emotions that I struggle to express with words. It inspires me, giving me goosebumps. Music can take me back to very specific moments in time, bringing memories to life. And it makes me feel so alive. Music comforts me, opens me up, and releases what I didn't even know I was holding on to. It's a gift that reminds me of the beauty and the depth of the human experience. Thank you for sharing this time with me. If this episode resonated with you, please follow, rate, and share it with someone you love. And don't forget, join our Me Reimagined Facebook community for deeper connection and support. With love, until next time.
You do not carry this all alone. No, you do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this all alone.